What's good, good people? This is your boy, Mr. Timothy D. Hall, and I am so grateful for y'all being here. This is the first installment, first episode of Words of Wisdom. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on this podcast real quick, and then we're going to move forward from there. What I wanted to do in this podcast is, I've been through a lot of different things in my life, a lot of struggles, just like most other people. Through the grace of God, I've definitely been able to endure and to get through several things. People, people look at me and they're pretty puzzled. They're like, how did this person get past this, and this? A lot of people in this lifetime, we run into things. Maybe you had like a really bad childhood. Maybe you had a really bad breakup. Maybe you had lost your dream job, or you could have had different type of things. And for a lot of people, when they lose something, it's so significant. A lot of times, what they can crack under that pressure. And they can never really fully recover from it because the crushing pressure of what happened. I can definitely empathize with that because I've been through that. And I think one of the reasons why I was put on this earth is to endure a lot of that pain that I went through, because I realized that I've been through more so trials than other people. And that doesn't mean nothing about nothing. It doesn't mean that I'm like anything negative towards myself or negative towards another person. It's just an observation that I believe I'm seeing, because I chose I chose a certain path in life where other people didn't choose the same path. And I think you have to endure more pain because of it. And everything that I talk about on here is linked to spirituality. I am a very spiritual person. I've always been a spiritual person, and so that's where a lot of times I got my strength and my life is from the spiritual component of I believe in God. So that's where I've always gotten my strength. And again, a lot of people are puzzled, like, how can this person begin through how is this person jumping from hoop to hoop and going through all these trials and tribulations, and then this person is coming out of those things? How is this person doing that? And again, the way I'm doing it is through God. I have a very strong spiritual side to myself. But with all that being said, I really want to talk about today is in this first episode is the phenomenon that I call the nail in the foot. And what I mean with the nail in the foot is, a lot of people, I believe, just like how I was, a lot of people, they go out here and you can imagine if you're walking around and you just so happen to for some reason walk in an area where there were nails on the ground, and you were barefoot and you stepped on it, and one of them nails now impaled your foot. Now you have a nail sticking out of the bottom of your foot, and when you step on a nail, it's extremely painful. And let's just say that nail went to some an area where there's a lot of muscle or whatever, and it's is embedded in your skin, and it's very, very painful. So the logical thing to do right away is to take the nail out, or whatever the case. But a lot of times trying to take the nail out is very, very painful. You know what I mean? It's extremely painful to take that nail out. So I'm guilty of this, and I think other people do this too. Because it's too difficult to take that nail out of their foot, a lot of people I see would walk around with the nail in their foot. They'll kind of turn their foot on the side, because they'll turn their foot on the side, and they're kind of walk in this off balance way, where they're using the full force of one foot, and then on the other side they're using like a small portion of their foot, because they're not trying to step on the bottom. They're not trying to plant their feet on the ground, because if they were to do that, then the nail will go deeper into their foot. So they don't want to do that. But with that being said, a lot of times when people do that, as you can imagine, because that nail is stuck at the bottom of your foot and you're walking on the side of your foot, you will not perform as well. It's going to be harder for you to run. It's going to be harder for you to complete different type of tasks. It's going to be harder for you to do. Typically, the only thing that you can do pretty doggone well with a nail in your foot is just lay down. You will not be the same person that you were before when that nail got stuck in your foot. And I liken this to the trauma and the hurt that people have been through. That nail represents the truth and the trauma of the trauma that people have experienced in their life. That nail represents all of the things that people is very difficult to look at. And so people don't want to look at these things, and so they choose to keep that nail in their foot, because a lot of people, based on when somebody had experienced that trauma, or that nail got into their foot, based on whenever it happened. Maybe it happened like 5 years ago and they still had that nail in their foot. Again, if they were to step on the ground with both feet flat on the ground, that nail will go further in and hurt them even more. But a lot of people are unwilling to take it out. So what people have learned to do is to learn to walk around with that nail in their foot. They've just learned, like, okay, well, I'm just gonna walk around with this nail in my foot, and so people have learned to operate with that pain. But because they still have that pain and they still have that nail in their foot, they're not operating at their highest level. A lot of people, they have gifts. A lot of people have gifts. A lot of people have talents, and a lot of times people, you see people can be very envious. And it's like one thing you should never underestimate the envious and the jealousy of the average person out here. Like it's really crazy. But again, that envy and that jealousy, a lot of times, again, is stemming from whatever trauma they had in their past, 9 times out of 10, and they haven't addressed it. And the thing is the moment that people take that nail out their foot, they will begin to heal, and they'll be able to plant both of their feet back onto the ground and can operate at 100%. But the reason why people don't want to do that and they don't want to take that nail out is because of how cold this world is. Again, I'm very, like, I do believe in God, and I do believe in that. So with all that being said, I believe that this world, just in general, I think that this world is completely backwards from what it's supposed to be. People look at people who have traits that we shouldn't accept. We accept people who are out here, selling drugs, like moving in the streets, like just doing damage, just toxic in so many ways. We celebrate that, but the people that like are actually helping and stuff like that, we don't celebrate that type of stuff. We don't celebrate the people that are trying to change the world. You know what I mean? Like, we will say out of our mouth that we want peace and this and this and this, but the fact of the matter is, like, the things that we consume, the music, the products, the TV shows, everything that we consume is the very opposite of like what we're saying that we want, at least in my opinion, a lot of times. So it's like, with that being said, a lot of people, we get caught up because there's nowhere to go. Again, if you think about this situation with the nail in your foot, that nail represents the trauma that you had to endure in the past. People have conditioned themselves to deal with that pain, and they rather deal with that conditioned pain rather than take it out. But going to the doctor is like going back to God or something like that. Going to the doctor would take that nail out or whatever. The doctor would take it out, but you got to pay the cost to go to the doctor. You know what I mean? You got to pay. You got to pay to get that nail out, and it's gonna hurt when you take that nail out. But you'll be healed at the end. You can think of the doctor as like God or whatever the case may be. But this world is so backwards. Things that we say that we don't like, we glorify. But the things that we say that we do like, we shame a lot of times. It's just backwards. That's why a lot of times people's characteristics, people will look at a person who has the characteristics of a godly person as a weak person, and they'll look at the characteristics of a person who's considered has a more devilish or demonic type of behavior. They'll look at that person as a good person. They'll switch it around. That's how this world is, though. Everything is switched around. Good is bad, bad is evil. Left is right, right is down. Left is right, up is down, down is up. It's turned completely backwards, and that's why a lot of people out here hurting, because they go out here and they are, they're chasing after what they know. They're chasing after what the society says to do, and once they do it, hey, they get it. But they're never going to take that nail out there. They get impaled, they have the trauma, and they'll never be able to take that nail out their foot, because the society has bred people who don't, the average person probably won't get help or try to take that nail out their foot, because people they're scared to address that trauma, that nail. And the reason why they're scared is because of their ego a lot of times. I harp on this all the time. The ego is like your sense of self on this earth, and people, they operate based on their ego. And the thing is, I'm not on here trying to downplay. Like, that's understandable. It's very understandable that people operate in their ego, and people operate in their ego for the simple fact that people understand that, like, you can't show people vulnerable. You can't be vulnerable with a lot of people. You can't show people, your flaws. You can't show people these different things. The reason being is because people will take advantage of you. People, they'll try to clown you and That's a very sensitive, vulnerable spot to be in. And when you opening yourself up and trying to address that nail in your foot, the trauma that you've experienced in the past. A lot of people, it's difficult to do it on their own. And they know they can't go out here in the world and do it because a lot of people going to try to clown them because they see other people clowning them, clowning other people who's going through certain things. So people put on facades. And again, you can't blame people. That's understandable. You got to understand that there's a reason why people put on facades and everything like that. They put on because they understand, like, if they don't, what's the repercussions for that? They see how people they see how people are treated if they ain't got this, that, whatever the case may be. You understand? So, but people operate with that nail in their foot. They operate because they're operating in that ego. That's that ego. Because they're operating that ego. Again, they're never fully themselves. They're never grounded. And I always liken a person's ego in comparison to spirituality. I compare it to, like, if you could think about an ego, if you think about it, dinosaur eggs, dinosaur eggs is probably the strongest, the outer layer, the shell itself is very, very thick. It's very, very hard, and that is equivalent to somebody's ego. But but people build their identity based on that outer shell, that thick dinosaur shell. But the inside of the shell, there's nothing. It's little to no yolk. You can imagine, like, there's there's nothing inside the egg. Or if it is, it's very little. In comparison to, on the other side, you can think of like a chicken egg. A chicken egg, the outer shell is very thin. That's again, it's equivalent to your ego. But the inside, the yolk is the spiritual side. So it's something inside, something of substance inside. So, but you still have that yolk inside. So I've always lived my life in a way where I've chosen that, like that chicken egg. My ego is very fragile and like it can be broken down. But I relied more so on that yolk portion. And on the other side with when people who are operating their ego, again, it's like that hard dinosaur shell. And so, because that dinosaur shell, the outer layer of it, the ego is very strong, but it's not like it can't be broken down. And when people meet, like, they match, or people meet certain things, that maybe they lost their job, maybe they lost a family member, maybe they lost a loved one, or whatever the case may be. Maybe they lost, maybe they lost the money, the status, the power, all that stuff. And I know, because I've been there. It's equivalent to that dinosaur egg, even though it had a very, very thick outer layer of the shell. Even though all that was the case, their ego was broken. There's nothing inside. It's like, I think a lot of people are very scared to go into that space because they're like, I don't know where I will be if I let go of my ego. I don't know, like, cause you know what I mean? Like, it's like, because a lot of people don't have the spiritual side. And again, inside, the spiritual side is equivalent to the yolk, the yolk on the inside of that shell. That's where you get your sense of self, the sense of, your sense of value and worth, not by the external things. But again, this world is so backwards that people look at spirituality and stuff like that. They think of, I even thought about it, like, and again, I'm included in all these things I'm talking about. I thought it was fake, like, not necessarily the spiritual part about it, but I thought definitely the religious portion of it, or at least, like, what you see in these organized religions. I thought that was fake, but I didn't necessarily think that I never thought the spiritual side was fake. But so we can get grounded in the sense that, like, it's whatever. But again, people are hurting because they don't know how to address that nail in their foot. They don't know how to heal from that. And again, I think that God placed me on this earth to help people with understanding how to remove that nail out their foot and to treat themselves so that they can nurse themselves back together. Because again, once they nurse themselves back together, what people will do is they'll start to get grounded yet again. They'll be grounded and they'll be more so connected with themselves spiritually. And again, people have so many people don't even understand, like, the gifts and the talent. People don't understand how talented they are, how special they are as an individual. Because a lot of times they're looking at other people and looking at the gifts and things that other people got, and they don't take the time to look at their own life and look at all the great things that they have in their life, like the talents that people have talent at their fingertips. Some people, they don't know what their talents is because they spent their whole life, trying to become, like, they tried to fulfill their ego. They tried to become something, they thought. was going to be accepted by society. They, people go out there, they spend their whole lives trying to become something that's just, they think society, that society wants to make them like a high value person, and they live miserable lives because of it. That's too real for a lot of people, but it's the truth. It's just the truth. And the thing is, once people have that ability to, get back to that spiritual side, people will ground themselves, and they'll be able to recognize what gifts and talents that they have. Because again, people have so many gifts and talents, they just they just never tapped into them. Some people just never took the time by themselves to learn what their gifts and talents. So a lot of people are like, I don't know what my gifts and talents is. It's because they never took the time alone. And again, this is why spirituality is so important, because once you disconnect from the world and you really get connected to God, yourself, or whatever the case, and you put your value, you place your value, your self-worth in something that is not on this earth, you'll become invincible. This is what I've always done in my life. Like, a lot of people would be looking at me like, how did you get through this, and this? How did you get through all those trials and tribulations and you're still up and moving around? Because they're looking puzzled, because they're like, if that was me, I would have not been able to get through that. I've had people, even recently, very recently, people try to tear you down, and they try to tear you down based off your flesh. They tear you down based on what you got on. They try to tear you down based on, whatever. That's how people fight on this earth. And I never fought like that. But when people are coming at me in certain ways, I can easily brush off the majority of what people are saying, because, I can see right through people half the time, but also I can see that people are operating on their flesh. They only see what's on the outside. And it's like, if I was to start swinging back, the way that I fight, I wouldn't even fight. Like, the thing I couldn't even fight, it wouldn't be a fair match in some cases. And I'm not trying to come at people. It wouldn't be a fair fight, because some people, they will talk about what's on the outer layer of you, what's on the outside. If I were to start fighting back, I'll tell people the truth about themselves, the truth that they're trying to hide. That I can see this. Like, I can see who you are. I just don't. I choose not to do that to you. But I don't have to fight you with, and I can't fight you based on the outer layer. But I can fight you with the truth. And if I fight you with the truth, that could really break people down like crazy. But to get back at this. Again, you are always, we are in this state where we have the ego versus this spiritual side of us. That spiritual side is very important. It's very important. I always liken, if you don't connect with that spiritual side, it's like equivalent to, you're standing in a field and you are like in between two semi trucks, and you have metal shackles on, and those metal shackles are connected to each of those metal, those semi trucks, which are on opposite sides of you. On one side, on the right side, that is your ego. That's your ego. That truck is the equivalent to your ego. That semi-truck is equivalent to your ego. Now, that truck, you can take those shackles and you can put them on, or you can take them off. You can put them on or take them off. It's your choice. You can do whatever you want with that one. That semi-truck on your right side, that is equivalent to your ego, it will not move unless you put on those shackles. You understand? But on the other end, on the left side, is your spiritual side. That semi represents your spiritual side. Now that side does not care whether or not you put your shackles on. You can either choose to put your shackles on to this. You can fight, you can protest and everything you want to. But that spiritual side, you cannot take those locks off. That God ordained them locks, and He's the only one that can unlock that spiritual side component to it. So that truck is going to move regardless. You're going to be carried with that truck regardless. And so I think a lot of people, and at least in my opinion, this is where I found myself. People are being pulled on both sides. People are being pulled by their ego, which is the earthly realm, and all the status, the money, the clothes, the cars, all that type of stuff. And then on the other side, the spiritual realm. This is where God kind of like ordained you to be, the gifts and the talents that God put on this earth for you to get. And so when people don't, when they try to choose both of these sides, everything's the only thing that's going to happen is they're going to be ripped apart at the end. They're going to be pulled apart because both of these semis are going in their two different directions. But on the flip side, if they were to take off that shackle to the ego, because remember, that's the only one that's optional. The spiritual one is not optional, but the ego shackles are optional. Once they release that, the semi is moving. Now, don't get me wrong, that semi, you still going to go through a lot of hell. With that semi, you can imagine if maybe the semi is not going that fast, but you're gonna be running and you're gonna be falling on the ground, you're gonna be rolling and stuff. But it's enough that it hurts you greatly, but at the same time it doesn't kill you. You know what I mean? But eventually you've been tussling around on that semi for such a long period of time on the road that you start to develop this tougher skin. You know what I mean? And you become stronger and stronger. And so, like, if you were to, go all the way back to the beginning, people look at you and, like, they'll look at what you've been through. They'll be like, how the heck did you go through all that stuff? And a lot of people just don't understand. But again, a lot of people put on the shackles of both the spiritual. The spiritual is always connected. You cannot take that off. But people put on that ego one too. And again, that ego, you don't know who you are. You don't know what your gifts, your talents are. You don't know, you'll know a lot of different things because you're operating out of your flesh. And a lot of times the way that you get connected in spiritual, again, is you got to really remove yourself from other people. And you got to address that trauma. You got to address that nail in your foot. You got to go to the doctor, take that nail, and try to figure out what is the best method to pull it out, so that you can get back to normal. Because once you do, you take that nail out, you'll be able to plant both of your feet back on the solid ground, and you'll be able to move. Again, if you are a believer of God, it's God that will take away, like I'm telling you, He'll take away that pain. He'll fix you up. He'll make you new. People looking at me like, who is this dude? This dude is not the same dude that was there last month. I am definitely not the same dude that I was, last month. It's because, of that connection with God. So I appreciate y'all for listening, and y'all have a great day. Peace.